right, so Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider episode 4, this one titled, Who is the Strongest Kamen Rider? So last week's cliffhanger, you had Yukariso revealing herself to be a shocker combatant in front of Yuriko, and this episode pretty much picks up where that one left off on, where Yuriko revealed herself to be a shocker agent, and you had the little pervert boy listening in, and he discovers Yukariso's secret, and of course, because he knows, she's going to try and kill him. So Yuriko quickly jumps into action, and the two get into a fight. Yuriko is like winning at first, and then you have this one scene where Yukariso was about to deliver a punch to Yuriko's face, and it's so freaking crazy. Like, she takes the punch, but the punch also gets caught like on her massive boobs, and that's how she's able to stop it as well. But then again, Yukariso ends up getting like shocker tackled into the ground and gets like knocked out. So the next lot of the episode is learning more about Mitsuba's backstory, but also being introduced to his brother Ichiyo. And we'll get into that in a bit. So Mitsuba finds out that his girlfriend is Shocker, and I thought he was under the impression that he knew or something like that. I guess I picked up on the wrong vibes. I thought he knew, but I guess that's not really the case. He had no idea the whole time. So he's shocked by this. But we learn more about his backstory and sort of how he encountered his first monster and his other encounter with Shocker during the summer vacation. So we learn more about that backstory. So we have this scene where they're hanging out on their, like Ichiyo and Mitsuba when they were younger, they were hanging out on their parents' farmhouse. You have this scene where they're watching TV and they're eating dinner, and a bunch of thugs come in and they start robbing the place. And the two kids actually go toe-to-toe with the thugs, or the thieves, until, you know, one of them transforms into Shocker in the end, and then they end up getting their asses handed to them and they get tied up, and they just like eat in front of them and watch TV, the thieves do. And then you have this scene where this big bulking lady, big massive lady, which is the grandma, comes in. And the grandma's really freaking badass, I will say that in this scene, where she grabs like the garden hoe, stabs it into the dude's arm, because he's not transforming as a shocker agent at this point, stabs it into his arm, grabs like the garden hoe, and just pulls this guy outside, and it is just freaking crazy. Like, that scene looked like it hurt, where you just have the garden hoe going into their arm and she's just like pulling onto it, and this like is a massive like grandmother, like with how big and bulky they were. So like that guy's getting dragged through. He transforms into Shocker, and the fight goes outside, and then everyone else goes to see what's going on with everything happening once they get freed from the ropes. And what we see in the end is we see a monster there that has slaughtered the grandmother and the shocker agents as well in the end. I believe the shocker agents were killed by the monster, it seems like. But that was sort of like the tragic backstory for Mitsuba and Ichiyo. So after that, we're soon introduced to Ichiyo, and he's got a really cool design. I do like him. I am curious to see who's going to be voicing Ichiyo and Mitsuba in the dub, because that has yet to be revealed, and I do wonder who's going to voice one of these characters. Like, I am betting on Johnny Youngbosch to voice like one of these characters. Like, they have to, like, Mitsuba and Ichiyo, like, either one of those characters, like, they scream like Johnny could voice these people like really well, and I'd eat it up, because I feel like that's a role that Johnny needs to do, like being involved in this anime. But we'll see. We have yet to find out. Like, we'll probably find out who's voicing both of them next week or the week after. We'll have to wait and see, depending on when press releases go out for the English dub while everything's being worked on. So we've got that going on. So Ichiyo shows up, and you have this scene where Tojima, because Tojima was there as well. Tojima was there the whole time with Yuriko and Mitsuba learning their backstory in the park. So after that, Ichiyo finally makes his full appearance. And this is where we get sort of the title of this week's episode, because Ichiyo and Tojima get into a fight about who is the strongest Kamen Rider. Is it Kamen Rider Ichigo or Kamen Rider V3? So the two get into a bit of a scuffle, and it's pretty cool, I will say that, because you know how Tojima puts on the mask and he says, I transform in the Kamen Rider? Well, Ichiyo doesn't really need to do that because, his aura sort of radiates and he is like the spirit of Kamen Rider V3 because, he's got the spirit of all the other Kamen Riders in him that came before him. So, Kamen Rider Ichigo and Ichi2. So, he's got that going on for him. So, the two get into a fight. It's a really cool fight scene, I will say that myself. And there is sort of this comedic scene where, Tojima's getting his ass handed to him and Yuriko decides to step in as tackle. And basically, freaking Ichiyo just tells her to get lost and he's not interested. But because he's not interested, that sort of gives Tojima the advantage in the fight because, Yuriko's transformation sequence is that she practically undresses herself in front of, like, the enemies and stuff like that. So he sees that he gets, like, the bloody nose trope that you see in anime, and that gives Tojima an excuse to sort of land the hit and win the fight. And then this is when things get interesting. So Yukarisu wakes up from the nap and Ichiyo sees this because, Shocker, he's really upset, really angry, and he's about to kill her, deliver a punch to her face. But this is when Mitsuba steps in and says, look, she might be a Shocker girlfriend. She might be a monster from Shocker, but she's my girlfriend and I care about her. So this is when you have Yukarisu sort of overwhelmed by what's going on here. And you have this scene by saying, look, I know you care about me and I know you love me, but I'm Shocker and I have to fulfill my duty. And she sort of sends out a little electric signal to like people around Japan in the area and all the Shocker grunts start coming out. But she says, look, I love you, but I got to kill you. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. So overall, this show continues to be really fun. We're sort of introduced. We haven't been fully introduced to our main like rider group yet because we know in the opening that Mitsuba is going to be Kamen Rider V3 and that will happen in next week's episode. So we're almost out of the introductory arc with everything going on as we're introduced to our main squad. But this first couple of episodes that we've had so far, I've been really enjoying. Like, the animation is a lot of fun. The fan service can be a bit crazy sometimes with the giant boobs and the jiggle physics and stuff like that. But hey, I've seen Gantz, I've seen High School of the Dead. I can handle my fan service from here to there. But this show continues to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go next. I mean, it looks like with next week's episode preview, that monster guy, the monster's going to show up or something like that. I have no idea, but we'll see Mitsuba finally being Kamen Rider V3, which I do wonder what his backstory is about wanting to be Kamen Rider V3, because, each character sort of like admires a rider, so I do want to find out what's sort of like his backstory for his admiration for Rider Man in the end as well. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's my review. That's my recap of Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider episode 4. I'll be back next week for my review of episode 5. So with that said, I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Take care. Bye.